Hey guys, this is Nathan and welcome to the Gaming 4. Today in this Unturned map review, we're going to be covering a map called Greensquareisland. Now this map did really well, it actually got an 83 out of 100, and it was a large map, which is also impressive. So let's start by talking about some of the strengths of this map, and then we'll move on to some of the weaknesses. To start us off with the strengths, one of the first things we noticed is that the detailing around the map was very good. There were some inconsistencies in some places. For example, some buildings seemed like they had been forgotten, and certain floors were just not done, but overall the detailing was very good. Another good thing that this map included was NPCs and quests from the Russia map. Now I'm not quite sure if the quests would have been fully formed and fully functional, but they did exist, and that's at least something for the player to do while they're surviving. There were also dead zones and appropriate dead zone equipment found throughout the map. So especially if your map is going to be including dead zones, you want to make it sure that you do include appropriate dead zone gear, whether that's just a gas mask or it's a full biohazard suit. Either way, you need to have one or the other if you're going to be including a dead zone in your map, and this map did do a very good job of doing that. Another really good thing that we found is that a lot of interesting and useful items were included. Also, there are very valuable and high tier items such as generator, rain barrel, and other higher tier craftables that you could just find throughout the map in rare locations. And so having these rare items makes it really nice when exploring because it really gets you a lot of good gear out of it. This map also included all types of vehicles and vehicle maintenance gear. We found pretty much everything that was needed to take care of a vehicle, and it also included a good amount of civilian weapons and ammo, and it heavily favored handguns in general. For example, we often had Colts and Aces, and we even found a Cobra at a certain point, and there's also a decent amount of ammo for these handguns. Lastly, the landscape was very good in this map. Some maps struggle with not having enough variety, but this map actually had quite a bit while maintaining the continuity within the map. So for example, the biomes blended together very well, and this really created a very interesting natural environment that's always due to change and always keeps the player on their toes in terms of how interesting it is. Alright, so that's pretty much it for the strengths of this map. Obviously it did very well, so I would suggest go checking them out, even if you're just going for the general ideas. So now let's move on to some of the weaknesses of this map and where it could have been improved. So one of the first things that this map struggled with, that a lot of other maps do as well, is that there wasn't enough food spawns. Now overall, there didn't seem to be much of an issue keeping your food and water up, but that's mainly because of the abundance of berries that we found all over the place. But in general, it would have been nice to see a bit more food so that players wouldn't have to rely on the berries found in nature. Something else throughout the map that really bothered me is that there were ladders that were tilted, and I don't know if you guys have tried to climb a tilted ladder in Unturned. Go ahead and place one in your editor and try it. It's really glitchy, and it actually is kind of dangerous in terms of breaking your leg and losing health. So whenever placing ladders in maps, always make sure to make them straight up and down without any sort of angles to them, otherwise it's almost impossible to climb them. As mentioned before, some of the areas of the map were not very well detailed. We also saw a decent amount of copy pasting, which we always discourage because it does overall lower the quality of the map. And also mentioned before, even though there were all types of vehicles on the map, it would have been nice to see a few more vehicles throughout the entire thing. Of course, it is a large map, so traveling from one end to the other does take a while, and because of that, you need to have the vehicles to move about through the map in a more convenient manner. Another thing that we found that was actually kind of a bigger issue is that it would have been nice if there were actually more difficult areas within the map, as well as better weapons and gear that you could find in the map. So one of the big issues here is that there were quite a lot of civilian weapons, but we had a lot of trouble finding ranger or military weapons. I'm not sure we found any when exploring through the entire map. Also relating to the higher tier areas, it would have been nice to see some more difficult areas, including more zombies, maybe a military base, and maybe even a mega spawn, which I don't think we found. Generally, it is quite important to include these more difficult and better gear throughout your map because it keeps the game interesting for the player. Once the player is set up and sort of conquered a few towns and has some basic gear, they're going to want to fight more and more challenging enemies, otherwise there's really no point to surviving. And having these higher tier zones that you have to work towards and having the higher tier weapons that you need to find really provides a lot of motivation for the survivor to actually keep playing the map and keep getting better. The last thing I want to mention in terms of weaknesses is not necessarily that bad of an issue, but it does heavily have to do with the style of the way that the map was made. So throughout the map, we found many places where the roads and the houses were overlapping each other in certain ways. This was partially for the design of the map. Some of the houses were combined to make cool hybrid buildings, but really it didn't look that good and it seemed kind of messy. and especially in the case of the roads where they're overlapping and sort of off-centered from each other, that sort of thing could be fixed quite easily using some basic tools found in the editor. So whenever making maps, be very careful when you're trying these new things. Obviously it can work very well, but you just have to make sure that it does before you keep it in your map and you actually implement it. Alright, so that pretty much does it for this review. Obviously this map did really well. 83 out of 100 is definitely a good score, and it's definitely worth checking out. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and please subscribe if you want to see some more. I will see you all later.